For the fifth and final in our series of Creative Kickstarts. I'm Danny Gregory, and I'm here with Nicki Traikos. And we are, well, how do you feel after 5 days of this, Nicki?
I was thinking this morning when I was making my coffee and clearing up my desk that it went slow and fast at the same time. I can't believe how much art we created. And I feel inspired. I even took out some of my old sketchbooks yesterday. I feel inspired to reintroduce some old friends into my kit. So, bringing back maybe a bit of gouache and even playing around with more watercolor pencils. But I miss my process for how I create art. And I can't wait to get back with this sort of renewed creative energy, this kickstart, and see what comes out next week when I'm in my space and get into a bit of a flow, but also open to bringing in some of the new supplies that we played around with this week. Yeah, it feels
Yeah,
good for you.
yeah. I mean, it's a bit abnormal doing it the way, making art the way we've been making art this week, just because we're doing this show as well, and we're
Mhm.
kind of jumping back and forth. But I kind of feel like it's been a way of shaking off the cobwebs,
Yeah.
just trying lots of different things, and I feel like I don't know. I have a new connection to a lot of my art supplies. I definitely after this whole thing, the whole room is chaos now, but I'm definitely feeling like over next week I want to go through and kind of I don't know, just maybe continue with the spirit of experimentation, definitely. And
So I feel like I need a bit of comfort. So it's interesting, right? How different we're responding, and that you're going to continue to stretch yourself a little bit, maybe.
I mean, I feel like I always sort of try to do that. I always try to do experiments and to give myself projects and assignments that push me. And I feel like when I have an assignment or a commitment to myself that I'm going to do 10 drawings or 100 drawings or whatever it is along a certain theme, it
Yeah,
it gets rid of one of the biggest problems, which is what do I draw?
yeah.
Right. So you sit down and you go, okay, I'm just doing, X. So I know to just do another one of those. And also, I find that when you do a lot of a thing, there's a lot less pressure on any given one of them because they're just faces in the crowd. So it's fine to have to do 100 drawings of something and then five of them are actually really good, you
Hmm.
know. But and it doesn't matter that the other 95 aren't that great. So that's part of the whole experience for me. Um,
Hmm.
but also, I think sometimes is it, would it be better for me to try and make a nice painting?
Hmm.
Try and do because everything I do is like one session. Sometimes I'll come back to things, but generally it's one session, and maybe I need to just try and make something nice. Try and spend some time on it and try to take it to the next level. So
I know
yeah,
what you mean. Something that takes like a bit of a process, right? Where you can spend a bit of time each day developing it and growing it. But I feel like, again, we look at our own art a lot differently. But I look at your pieces and I think they're complete, and that it looks like you've spent time on them. And I think it's too your experience, right? And just sort of the level at how quickly you can produce a finished drawing of something or a finished piece. But I understand what you mean.
yeah. I mean, there have been times when I spend more time on things and I get deeper into it, but sometimes it'll feel really like it just looks overworked or fussy. I want to be able to
Hmm.
just sort of, I mean, I always feel like it's about how I'm feeling a lot of the time, and so you got to kind of capture that feeling in a bottle when it's happening. You can't kind of keep coming back and tweaking it because then you get too conscious, too thought.
Hmm.
You're thinking too much about it, and then so anyway,
Oh,
um,
I had an idea. I'm going to cut you off. Sorry. For my approach to my art practice next week, I'm going to pick a subject, but I'm going to use, and I'm going to do it every day, and I'm going to use a different art supply. So rather than changing up the subject like we did this week, I think what I'll do is do, even if it's just a simple still life that I set up, and then one day I'll express it in watercolor. The next day I'll express it in maybe some pencil and gouache, because I feel like that would be an interesting approach as well to see how different it looks, but also maybe how the tool reacts with, maybe not the tool reacts with, but how the tool inspires me to interpret it, the next day and then compare them. So I thought that's going to be my focus for next week. See,
That's right. Yeah.
I just need to clear my desk out now and start to sort and organize, because the OCD part of me is, it's like,
I mean, definitely when you use different materials, you express yourself differently,
of course. Yeah.
So I think but sometimes you say, how do I feel? And what is the material that goes with that feeling? And that only kind of comes from experience, where you say, I feel watercolory, and if you're like still learning about watercolors, it's hard to get to that point. So you have to go there. So,
Well, I think
yeah,
too, as an artist, we have our focus, right? Like the one medium that we're really good at, we know how to control it. We know what to do with it. So when you bring in something that, causes a little bit of friction, it's good. Like it brings you back to, okay, I need to practice and develop that side again. So
right.
anyway, I know we don't
Yes.
have a lot of time.
No, I know. We have, so today we're going to be drawing people. We are drawing them kind of from our imagination. So we're just kind of tackling different ways that we draw faces. And we're working with Winsor Newton gouache. So it is going to be fun. I just want to, do you want to just quickly look at what we did yesterday?
I was like, what did we do yesterday? It's in my sketchbook.
Yeah, I don't even know where I put mine.
I was just looking at the comments. Does everyone hear us okay? Someone had mentioned audio. I hear audio on Nicki's YouTube, but not here. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Lisa's saying that. Can everyone hear me okay?
JJ?
Oh, I had to reload. Okay. Awesome. Good.
So, yeah. All right, JD hears audio on both. So,
Okay.
so,
Yeah,
so should we talk about, so yesterday, just briefly, yeah, good. Okay, let me. All right, so what did you do since yesterday? Did you do anything?
you know what? I didn't touch it. There's my sardines. I love the sardines. I didn't touch it. I maybe put in a few tiny dark specks when we were chatting after. Did you do anything to yours?
I did a lot actually, because I remember that I had a box of, I think it's 96 Winsor Newton markers, and I was tired of being frustrated by the ones that were in that pack and just saying there aren't enough. So I went and I got out all the other ones that I have, and I kind of just went over and I sharpened everything up, So it's a lot. I put in a lot more color. I also used a bit of white gel pen, and I used a bit of white pencil, and I just, I managed to make those donuts
Your donuts. Yep, I see it.
they felt better to me, and my sardines have been really blobby, and I pulled out a couple of gray markers to give this some dimension, and similarly here I put some white in to get the shine there. I sharpened this up, I cleaned it up. So yeah, so I felt a lot better, and then I just generally went over everything and gave it that extra zhuzh so that the whole page just felt tighter and more colorful. It's interesting because it doesn't really look like my stuff particularly to me, and that's because of the markers.
Somebody mentioned that Nicki is picking up your style.
Oh, somebody said you're picking up my style.
See, you're influencing me.
Yes, we're leeching into each other. So yeah, I mean that was part of the idea behind this whole thing. But I think it's, to me, markers have a certain color palette, and you can layer them. You can see like here I've layered a lot of colors, and so you create other colors. But it's definitely a different color palette than watercolor, and certainly differently than we're going to work with today in gouache, which is. These are gouache colors. You can see they're flatter, but they're bolder in some ways. And this also, again, absorbed into the paper, so it makes it all softer. But I felt good about this spread afterwards, and that was that.
Amazing. I love it. I think yesterday was a lot of fun. It felt very freeing.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice to play with the markers too. I definitely will pick them up again in my sketchbooks where I use dry medium.
Ah, good. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to learn how to bring markers into the world. So I forgot to mention before, so obviously we're sponsored by Winsor & Newton. We've talked a bit about that. Today we're working with Winsor & Newton gouache. yesterday. I'm also going to use some colored pencils from Winsor Newton.
Mhm.
And
What if they don't have gouache?
if you don't have gouache, just do whatever you want. We're just experimenting with fun ways of drawing people's faces. And we're each going to draw our own, and we're making them up from our own imagination. So feel free to do that. It's not like we're copying a picture and trying to do a portrait. It's more like I like to create a character and to create sort of a person and think like, what's their story and who are they, and dress them up and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of what today's exercise is going to be. Hopefully you will have something you want to share, probably on Instagram or on Facebook, wherever you want to share it. Put down hashtag ArtKickstart 2024 so we can find it, and we will be collecting all those pictures and making a little video that we'll share on YouTube next week sometime. So, yes. All right, good. I don't see any other comments that I need to address, JJ, before we get into it. All right. So, Nicki, do you want to start first, or should I start first?
What do you prefer?
I'm ready to get into it, so I'll start first. So basically what we're going to do is we're each going to work for 5 minutes on a face, then the other person will do 5 minutes on a face, and we'll go back and forth. So Jay, would you mind setting a timer? Hold off until I'm actually set up, though, which is going to be... Yeah, so where's my thing? So what I did is, in preparation for this, just while we were waiting before, I made some faces. So I just wanted the gouache to dry. So now it's nice and dry. I have my gouache palette all set up here and nice and messy. I'm kind of layering some of the gouache I had earlier in the week, and it kind of dried. So I just squirted some more on top. I don't know if that's the correct way of doing it, but I mean, how nice are these colors? Even in the palette.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I'm going to grab a fistful of brushes. And so I'm just going to take this guy, and I'm just going to see, like, what does he become? I'm also going to be using these Winsor Newton Studio pencils, and these are not the watercolor pencils.
Okay.
Okay, so give me one more second. I'll set the timer. Yeah, so I'm using these because I don't necessarily want to activate them. So let's see. Fairly small, so I'm going to be using some small little brushes, and I don't know, I think let's start the timer. Timer's going. So timer's going. So gouache dries fairly quickly, but I like to put down some face, and then maybe some kind of a nose. I like to do something like this that looks kind of like a kid's drawing, and then try and make it more active as we go. So I think this guy might need to have some facial hair, maybe.
Someone's asking about references today, so we're just playing. So if you want to use a reference, maybe have something, handy. But just letting the personality and the character, I think, come through today. And if you haven't played with portraits, maybe some of my watercolor audience and community is on. Just put down some color and start to play.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to necessarily worry about having to get a likeness today. I mean, I like to draw actual people sometimes, but I also like not having to think about that and just say, like, let's make up a guy and see where he takes us. Gosh, gouache is so nice, isn't it? I mean, I just marvel at it sometimes. It has this sort of, to me, a feeling of like another period too. Like, for some reason, I feel like I'm channeling. I like to channel sort of like Czech illustrators from the 50s or something. This is, this like, this
And I like
just,
it's easy cleanup like watercolor, but if you're using something like acrylic, you need to make sure you wash your brushes off really well, and it just, you need to clean up a lot more. So I feel like it's versatile like acrylic kind of, but the ease of watercolor is, what I love about it too.
yeah, I agree with that. It's,
And the designer gouache from Winsor Newton, they're, like you said, they're just really pigmented. Like there's the pigment
only
payoff
a
is.
little tiny bit. So, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, how do you deal with the fact that it's not like watercolor where you can just have the same stuff sitting. I wrestled with that a long time. Was like, how do you, you pick up your palette, you have to like restock it with paint every time, or
I do what you did. Just I reactivate it with water. So you're talking about your palette, like your mixing palette?
yeah, basically, I'm just yeah. Well, you can to some extent, but it can get a little lumpy, right? I mean, it can get super dry if you haven't used it
Sure.
in a few
Especially
days,
when
right?
it's coming out of a tube. It's meant to be used like squeezed fresh out of a tube, but it does reactivate like watercolor does. So I just make sure I have an extra little, like a fresh blob. That's the technical term.
Yeah.
A fresh
I
blob.
mean, that's what I'm
Squeeze.
doing here. You can see it looks really
Yeah.
ugly, but like here, this is just some red squeezed on top of what was sitting there. And when you mix it all together, it
Yeah.
kind of you know it reactivates that. And how much time do I have, Jenny?
Just under a minute.
Okay. I'm gonna let him dry, and then I'm gonna come back in and do his eyes. Getting a bit nervous now. I would have liked to have a bit more time. So here you can see this is much more diluted, and it's not quite watercolor, but it's closer.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Oh no. Okay. Just gonna give him a tie. All right, 10 seconds. I'm gonna let him dry, and then I'll fix his eyes. Done. Out of time.
Yay. Love him. He needs a name. Should we name them all after too?
Yes, maybe we'll write their names underneath.
Give him a little persona.
Precisely.
Love
All
it.
right, your turn.
Switcheroo. Switcheroo. Let me zoom in too, actually. So, what I did, and this is gouache. So, my approach, of course, being a watercolor artist, I like to use it a bit more wet. I kind of like this large one at the bottom. I'm deciding who I want to start with. So, I literally just put down ovals and I mix some colors that look like they could be the start of a skin tone, kind of like my midtones. But I'm thinking this one here, actually. This is the one that I'm going to focus on. So I basically used all the colors in the palette that we got to start to mix some secondary colors. So I mixed some of the yellow and red together to make more of a peachy tone, added some white to lighten it. And what I like to do when I'm working on faces is I'll use a dry medium. So I normally use a graphite, but I thought I would use the watercolor pencils because I can then activate them and add a little bit of shadowing. So this face to me feels like it is maybe a 3/4 angle, and I'll just start to put in where I think the features will go. And my approach to portraits, and I've been studying portraits a little bit more these last few years, as I kind of feel like they look a little bit primitive when I get down the features. But then as I start to bring in a little bit more refinement, I can see the personalities taking shape. So it's all about really creating depth and looking at values. And again, it'll be so different than what Danny is showing you. And I think that's a really neat thing about this week. So that's the watercolor pencil in like an umber. I'm going to bring in a little bit of red because I want to start to bring in color too. And again, I want there to be some nice options for when I start to bring water in to move this paint around. And then I can even give her a little bit of a shirt. Maybe we'll put a bit of yellow as well.
She's holding that pencil.
Everyone see it? Okay, so the yellow's a little bit light, but
So
we'll
you're
start.
you're holding that pencil. You hold it like really high up.
Yeah,
Why is that?
because so it'll allow me to be more gestural with my movement
I
rather
see.
than precise. If I hold it in tight, which I can do when I start to bring in a little bit of detail, I can get a little bit more precise.
I
But
see.
holding it further back just allows me again to be a bit more gestural. And I want the water to start moving the pigment. So I don't mind that it's kind of just kissing the paper, leaving a
Because you're
little
going to
bit of,
go over this with a wet brush next.
yeah,
I have a
yeah.
question.
Let me put a bit of purple
Yeah.
on here too.
Ralph wants to know, what does Nicki use to store gouache out of after it's out of the tube?
Yeah. Here's a question. Oh Jesus. Here's a question from Ralph. Sorry. He says, Nikki, what do you use to store gouache after you get it out of the tube?
So, like watercolor, I just leave it on my mixing palette. I have a separate palette for gouache specifically, but when you're using tubes of whether it's watercolor or gouache, know that the formula is meant to be used straight out of the tube. So, when you reconstitute a dry mixing palette with a bit of water, you'll still get a really good quality pigment payoff. You'll still enjoy the experience of painting. But if you squeeze just a little bit of fresh paint from the tube, it'll be even more flowy and opaque, and you'll be able to get to painting faster. So I have a specific palette that I use for gouache, and I just reconstitute it with water.
Great.
Okay, so let me get a bit of water because I know I'm on a time crunch here. And what I like to start doing is just wake up that
Another question.
watercolor. I'll
Okay.
use a
Hold on
little
one
bit.
second.
Wake up that watercolor pencil to start bringing in again just some shadowing. Like I'm thinking of values here and what it starts to look like with a little bit of water. And then I'll go in with gouache, give her some hair. And again, I didn't know, I feel like when you just draw intuitively these portraits, I feel like their personality starts to come out really naturally. And again, we can name them and
Do you ever
give them.
recognize them? Or you always like, oh, that's Bill from the supermarket.
That's my crush from high school. No, no, but it's funny because you get to a point where you start to paint like the person who comes out, I feel like is very similar. It's almost like someone that you've known maybe in a past life or something. I'm going to go ahead and try to mix a little bit of a darker, almost, I'm thinking for her hair, I kind of want something that's a little bit more of a brown. And again, you can use the gouache really nice and opaque, like Danny showed you, or water it down. Again, it's just personal preference. And if you don't know what your preference is, play around with it. So I'm getting a little crazy with my color mix here, but I added a bit too much green. Should we give her green hair? Make her punk. There we go. That's nice and dark. So it'll be a little bit on the green tinge, but that's okay. And what I'll do is put down a little bit of that. Maybe I'll give her less of a forehead.
So Nicki's
A
timer's
little
up,
bit
and I'm going to
of
give
that
her another 2 minutes.
gouache.
You're getting an extra 2 minutes, even though.
I am.
Yeah.
Thanks, JJ.
Carla says, do you see something in your mind when you don't have a reference photo?
No, so what I think of, Carl, is placement of features. And then I kind of let the medium guide like how extreme they'll be or like her lips got a little bit away from me, so I can go in with a pencil or a watercolor pencil and clean them up a little bit. But I kind of just let the medium decide. Like she almost even now kind of looks a little bit, oh, I don't know, like a nun because of what I've done to her hair here. So I just let the medium guide me and then use the proportions of like a face to make sure that it doesn't look completely off. But that's kind of cool. And I think I'm good. If I have a few minutes left, I can go in and blend maybe, or even I'll grab my brown here, and maybe even define her nose a slight bit. Bring in some shadowing.
Krista wants to know if we use the same set of brushes for watercolor and gouache, or is it better to have specific brushes for both? I mean, I use the same brushes for everything, so.
Yeah, because they're water-based medium, I do as well. And I just make sure after a gouache session that I rinse them a little bit more. Like I may take them to the sink and rinse them out a little bit.
Right.
But no, you don't have to worry. If you're using acrylic or anything that is like oil, I would use different brushes for sure.
Deb says, I give my gouache palette a spritz of water every day when I'm passing my art desk. And when I do sit down to paint, it doesn't take much to activate them.
Yeah, I think there's wet palettes that you can get where there's almost a foam that you wet that goes under.
I've had those, and you can. I have my other set of gouache has like an airtight seal. All right, timer's done. Yeah, you're done. You're done. You're out of here.
My señorita is complete.
Completa. All right, I am gonna.
A lot of people asking about color theory.
We need to see your desk.
All right, so I'm using colored pencils now. So,
Danny, I can see your desk.
Yeah. You can't see my desk?
No.
Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So, was there a question, JJ?
A bunch of questions about color theory.
Color theory.
How important is it? I keep hearing about mother colors.
Mother colors. Okay. So JJ says that somebody's asking about mother colors. What are mother colors?
Maybe primary colors. Is that what they're referring to?
Yeah, maybe. How important is color theory? I keep hearing about mother colors, etc. on TikTok. Well, there's your problem.
I think color theory is important. Being someone who did black ink calligraphy mainly and then moved to watercolor, until I really got color theory and color mixing, I feel like a whole new world opened up to me. I wasn't relying on, well, what are, other artists painting in, and how do I find, do I have to buy all of the colors in the spectrum? If you think about it, Winsor Newton sent us the primary colors, so maybe that's the mother colors that you were thinking about. And then from there, a black and a white, and you can mix any color you want. And that exploration, I feel like, is really huge for your personal art practice. So I would say, yes, like I have a class where I teach color theory. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of know a bit about color theory, so I don't know anymore. I just kind of just grab stuff. And, yeah, I mean, I know that I should. I know enough about color theory, perhaps that it's internalized, but I think it's important to
maybe
understand.
Color for you is more intuitive, right? Like I feel like you have a strong color theory and application that you use.
I'll certainly think about compliments. That if you have, I certainly will think what color would go with that to make it pop. Those sorts of things, definitely.
So Patience is saying mother colors are when you take a color and mix it into all the other paints you are using. That way the painting is unified. That's interesting, but I feel like with color mixing that happens naturally. So maybe don't make it so complicated. Just have your core colors and understand a bit of color theory. And then even if you're working in like a series in your sketchbook and you're using the same colors, that creates that unity too. But I feel like, maybe that's just a complicated term. That might.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you can. I guess you could mix the same color into everything. That just seems like it might be a bit messy, but I think certainly thinking about warm colors and cool colors is helpful. You know, because
Mhm.
particularly when it comes to mixing, like if you're mixing yellow and red, the results will be very different if they're a warm yellow and a cool red, that kind of thing.
Mhm. I call that secondary. So you have a primary color group and then a secondary color group. So you can do like a yellow ochre with a sap green. So they're not, or or a cobalt blue. So if you think about yellows and blues, right? So there are like guidelines I always say to art and color mixing, but I would be fluid with rules. If that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm not really listening because I'm trying to
No,
get this
that's
done.
okay. I'll chat with them. You paint.
Sounds good. Um,
So Ralph is asking, does your airtight gouache container work or not worth the trouble?
my airtight gouache container, my paints came in, they're called Hemi. They came, is it Hemi? Whatever they are. Yeah, it works pretty well. It does. You have to really be careful though, to make sure that it's tightly sealed. But yeah, I think if you have an airtight container, it will keep your gouache fairly, not for months and months, but certainly for a week or so. And I think when you get into gouache, you just have to get used to using them a lot. And I think that that's good anyway. So um, that's something that I would urge you to do, is to do a lot of gouache painting, and then they won't dry up. Also, you don't need a huge amount on your palette, right? You can put a fairly small amount of gouache on your palette, and it will.
So Deb said, I give my gouache palette a spritz of water every day when I'm passing my art
Yeah, we
test.
talked about that already. Yeah,
All right, your timer is up.
my timer's up. Damn it. Okay, just let me do one thing. There we go. Okay, my timer's up.
Love it.
Your turn.
He looks like a Stan to me. I love it. Okay, let me swap.
He does look like a Stan.
Swapperini. Okay, so maybe we should do. Let's do. Maybe it's too close. I was going to pick one of these ones on top here. Got to move my tea. So I thought this one kind of looked like a profile, and maybe I'll stick to. It's funny how like dirty my palette looks, right? And the colors are more muted. So you think about Danny's. I love that again. Just how different our styles and approaches are, and how hopefully you're enjoying that. Okay, so this time around, I think what I'm going to do is try to just use my gouache and see what happens. So I'm imagining something that maybe is a little bit more like the head is turned. So again, I'll go ahead and lay the foundation. And I love that there is more of a rounded face because of the way that this one has dried. So I'll lay the foundation for where I want to put my features, and then I can go in and accentuate them a little bit and see what happens.
Martina says
Maybe we'll give her a
color
turtleneck.
theory is color theory like baking bread. You can get super complex, but it doesn't need to be. Yeah, I think that that's probably true.
Yeah, and
I
I
think
think I'm even going to explore like the mother color that was brought up because I'm interested. I want to learn more about that and see
yeah,
what
I think
that
color
means.
theory also matters quite a lot in watercolor because when it comes to mixing, it's um it's a bit more of a dark art than it is in something like gouache. Do you think that's true?
Give her. Sorry, I'm focused. You chat. I'm going to focus on
No,
what's
I just was
happening.
asking you whether you thought that mixing in watercolor is just a much more complicated thing than it is when it comes to gouache or
Yeah,
other
100%
mediums.
because you can't use white, right? Well, I don't like to use white to lighten colors or to change colors at all because I feel like it gets really chalky.
Hmm.
Um, and to lighten colors in watercolor, you really should be using just water because water will lighten a watercolor.
Right.
So again, I'm going to try to use more gouache this time and play a
Carla
little
says,
bit.
I hear people in comments on YouTube talking about their gouache getting moldy in airtight containers. Absolutely. It's happened to me. It grows mold. Like I tried putting like a wet paper towel on my
Just
gouache.
not Windsor Newton. Not Windsor Newton.
Yeah, if you buy like an inexpensive like a gel gouache or something like that, and then you just store it away, it can get
Mm-hmm.
moldy. I mean, I think that the real key is just put a small amount in your palette, use like a pea-sized amount, put down a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different colors and plan to, try and use them as much as you can, and then you might have to chuck them out at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
session and put fresh
Okay,
ones
okay
in.
with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Fran is interested in the fact that your gouache is more like watercolor.
Mm-hmm. Again, because I'm a watercolor artist, right? So I like um, I like the transparency of watercolor, and I can mimic that using the gouache. Maybe I'll give her some black hair and use it a little bit more.
I am medium fluid. I
And I,
trans I go from one medium to another seamlessly.
and I love like how I can just use some water to pull out and make it a little bit more transparent. It's good. Let's give her some red lips too.
Kate is asking regarding mold, does it matter which water you use to re-wet? I've heard that using distilled water can prevent mold, at least with watercolor. I guess that makes sense. I've usually just used tap water when I had the problem.
Yeah, I just use tap water as well. So that's interesting. But I don't, I let my palettes dry out. And I think that's key if you're finding mold in your wet palettes. Maybe just like what Danny recommended, use like a small pea sized amount.
Right. John says that's why watercolor is great to learn color mixing. It's also cleaner and cheaper to start with. I think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think watercolor is a more flexible medium in that regard. I find that
Mm-hmm.
when I mix colors in gouache, it's just a different experience. The colors are just so much more intense. It's a different experience. But with watercolors, you can also layer it, which gouache you can't really do unless you're diluting it the way you're doing it. It
I
generally
really like
tends to
the
be.
pink on her cheeks. I'm going to try to bring up a little bit of pink.
Joe has a question. I think that's how you pronounce it, Joe. I end up destroying paper when I try to lighten colors with water. What is your solution to that? Well, I would say, first of all, you probably
Oh,
don't have
what
the right
paper
paper.
you? Yeah.
I mean, good paper is designed to hold up to it. So if you're not using good quality watercolor paper, it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to take a lot of working, as it were, where you're working on it. How's her time, by the way?
It's about 15
You have
seconds.
15 seconds.
I feel like she's pretty done. Maybe we need to bring some hair to define her face a little bit. And I wanted to give her bangs. But even see how it just spreads like watercolor. I don't know. Again, I use gouache differently because that's my style.
There you go. All right. Are you ready to switch?
Kind of.
Time is up.
There she is. Her name is Celeste.
Madeline. Celeste? Yeah,
Madeline?
it could be Celeste.
For the two. Look how different they are. So fun. Okay, I'll swap.
All right. I think who's this guy? This guy's a bit more sleep deprived.
Oh, some beautiful comments. Oh, he does look sleep deprived. And even the energy of color. Like if you look at the first one with the pink, it's a bolder, I feel like powerful expression. Your second one maybe looks like he's a little ill, right? Because the green. So it's just even the power of color.
He's not feeling that great. He
No. Not a
He
bad day.
he had a really big sandwich at lunchtime.
A
And,
sandwich.
a big sandwich. And yeah. This guy, I think it's time to give one of these guys some actual proper hair. So I'm not biased against those people who have hair.
It'll be interesting when you give them like finish their eyes, right? Because I feel like that can really change a portrait or a
Yeah,
person.
that turns the lights on. Definitely turns
Even the
the lights on.
direction that they're looking. Ooh, I'll be curious to see
Come
what
off
you just.
camera, man. I think you need to scroll up your page. Maybe this guy is. You know what? I think he's wearing a tuxedo. Could be.
Josie's saying might have been the pizza and sardine combo from yesterday that made him green.
That's true.
Unless it's anchovies on pizza, which I'm not opposed to. He looks a little bit more punk rock to me now. Like I thought it's interesting to watch you in the process, right? Because you think one personality is coming out and then, yeah, love it.
But now he's more formal. He's wearing a tuxedo, you see.
Yeah. Let's go on somewhere special. I like it.
Or he's a waiter.
Sync says an old Bert years after Ernie left the show.
An old Bert years after Ernie left the show. That's hilarious. Or maybe he's a vampire.
Travis from Taxi Driver.
All right. He's a little skeletal.
He's had a long shift at the pizzeria.
It's a very fancy pizzeria, though.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, how you doing? Can I show you to your table? Special today is sardine pizza. Okay.
What's up with this choice on the eyes?
What do you mean, this choice on the eyes?
Three all have white eyes.
JJ has just noticed that all three of them have white eyes. It's not a what's up. It needs to dry so that I can do the pupils and the irises on top of the whites of their eyes, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand it now, but it wasn't obvious.
I mean, I've said it about every other time.
I'm juggling.
JJ's busy, so
Someone's saying, well, now he's really a vampire with the soulless eyes.
yeah, he'll come. He's a zombie. He's a bit of a zombie.
All right, time.
Time's up. Sorry, dude. Time's up.
Do I have time for one more quick one?
You do, yeah. You have time, and then I have to come back and I have to finish these guys. We're doing well with time today. Now we finally mastered our time management.
Yeah, honestly, it only took us 5 days.
Yeah, now that it's no longer relevant.
I think she's dry, so I'm not worried about putting my hand in her. So I think I'm going to try to do a man.
Okay.
I'm going to do a man. I'm going to do something a little different too. No, let's not. Let's stick to
Says
my
being
vibe.
a man.
Okay. So I'm looking at this shape and I'm picturing a man. I kind of like when I do shapes like this, I kind of like to just get a feel for what's already there. And maybe what I can, maybe I'll even get a little bit more structured because, it's my 5 minutes. And then I just play with moving my pencil around and seeing, oh, good, you can see that. And seeing what I can create. Should I even give him a little mustache maybe and a beard?
So Patience says gouache used to be used mostly for advertising art that would be photographed and tossed. That's often true. Certainly, it was used a lot. Also, we talked about this, that it was used in the fashion business. That's how people would paint custom, paint patterns, repeat patterns. It's called surface art. But
Mm-hmm.
also, yeah, gouache is a that's why it's called designer gouache, I think.
Mm-hmm. Because designers, yep, like you said, surface pattern designers used it. Okay, so I've got my kind of under drawing down. Let me get my
Oh,
palette
here,
here.
Patience says here, generally speaking, gouache that re-wets well is called artist's gouache, and designer gouache was not intended to re-wet.
Oh,
Okay, well, good.
interesting.
Thank you, Patience. Patience.
So I'm going to just start to put a bit of color down. That brush is not happening right now for me
This is designer gouache, by the way, that Winsor Newton gave us.
that we're working with, yeah. And I like to add just a little bit of interesting color to the mix. Again, just kind of to see, what can I express in terms of color and shadows and kind of go from there. And even how things bleed. So his eyebrows are going to be very expressive. And I think of light source and I want to give him a nice beard. This one looks a little scary. Do I need to refocus on him? How does my focus look?
He looks swarthy. He looks like he has like a very heavy, unshaven beard.
Yeah, I like it. But again, I can tighten it up because I've put these layers in. While it's still wet, it may feel a little bit like out of control. But I can even go in with some graphite to sharpen it up. Let's give him some blue here. And again, these are quick, right? So really, all of the marks are really gestural, and I'm not thinking too much about what's happening so that I can be loose. And then I can always go in with my watercolor pencil to start to define a little bit more. And bring in some. These little, they can even become studies, like they can inspire something. But I feel like I need to give him hair of some sort. And again, if you're looking at maybe some of your more quick gestural pieces and not feeling like they're as successful, sometimes we learn the most from those pieces and that practice. And be okay with that. Like, be okay if you don't love what you've just put down on paper.
Right, she's got 15 seconds.
You got 15 seconds.
What? Okay, let me bring in his beard a little bit more. And again, too, when you're working with wet mediums, especially how I'm working with this gouache, It looks different when it's dry, and it's quite lighter as well when it's dry.
I think he looks very nice.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And again, not complete. Like I'll definitely work on him a little bit more, but different, right? I was open to just playing and sort of see what happens. And that's definitely, his eyes are a little crazy, but that's okay. Great thing about gouache is I can go back with a little bit of white and fix them up, which I might do while you're giving your eyes.
It is
I'm okay with
forgiving.
letting him play, actually.
It is forgiving. Right.
Alrighty, let him try and see what happens.
All right, here's the last one.
You gonna do a woman?
You know, people seem to want a woman.
Are you going to do a woman?
Make it me.
I'm not going to make it you.
Make it look like JJ.
I'll just get in trouble. Seriously. I mean, would you want to be any of these guys I've drawn so far? I don't think so. Oh, can you hear those geese outside?
I can't hear it.
I think it's just the quails.
Oh, is it our quails? Or we have a lot of quails around here.
That's so cool.
We have quails. We have lovebirds. We have hawks. We have mockingbirds. We have doves. We have hummingbirds. It's a hellhole.
Means there's good energy around you if
It's a
you have all of
jungle.
those birds and animals coming to you.
No, it's very nice having them here. I think she has. I guess she's a primary school teacher because she has all the primary colors.
It reminds me of a game I used to play with the kids called. It's a guessing game where you had to describe what clothes they were wearing, what color hair. Are you familiar with it at all?
Well, we do a thing here on Draw With Me. We've done a number of times which is called like, it's like you're a witness to a crime, and then you have to so JJ will be the witness to the crime, and then she'll describe the person, and then we all draw based on her description, and then she shows us the photograph afterwards.
Oh my God, how fun is that?
It's really good.
I'm secretly working on mine to make him more handsome.
Hey, that's cheating.
Shh, don't tell anyone. Guess who? That's right, Martina. That was such a good game. We played that with the kids. We would travel so they'd be able to play in the back seat of the car together. Yes.
Guess who?
Guess who? Mm-hmm. Oh, someone's suggesting Pictionary on Draw With Me. That would be fun too.
You know what I've discovered? I mean, I'm fairly good at Pictionary, but what I've found is that when you can draw well, you're actually the worst at Pictionary.
Because you're trying to be too literal?
Yeah, it's just, Pictionary I think is all about the psychic connection that you have with the other person, where you can kind of, so you can draw like.
You take too long.
Yeah, I take too long because I'm doing shading and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let me get my gouache out.
Cross hatching.
Yeah. Let me just grab my airbrush.
I like her nose. I love that it's an arrow. But it feels like it's pointing down to her. Was she upset? Are you going to make her angry or stern?
No, she's a primary school teacher, so she's pleasant, but Don't piss her off. Yeah, this with gouache, it is helpful to have more time because I would like to have things dry and then I can go in and add stuff on top of it.
You have 30 seconds.
And now I have 30 seconds, so
I want you to finish the eyes. I need to see them.
yeah, I know. I do need to do the eyes. So I think I'll do that at the very end because even though we're almost out of time, just because I would like her eyes to dry before I do her final thing.
All right, you're done.
I'm done, folks. Whoops, there she is.
I love it.
Okay, Nicki, it's up to you.
I'm drawing again.
Or if you want to go back, do you want to go back in and polish some of the stuff you've done already?
How handsome he is. I didn't touch him, I swear. Let me show you on this one what I would do now that she's dry, how I would just sort of tweak her a bit. How's that?
Sounds good.
Look at him. He's got this really nice stare about him. Okay, so this is where I would kind of go in and decide, can I make areas of her face pop? I love how she looks. Like, I think if it was in my sketchbook, I wouldn't necessarily go back and do much to her, but I, again, will show you just with a really fine brush. So this is like a detail brush. It's a 0. I'll go in and just accentuate, maybe even give her mouth a bit of an upturn. So if you wanted to change the expression of a piece that you've just been working on, that's a really, really easy way is to give them a bit of an upturn. And again, it almost softens her eyes. So it makes me look to her eyes. And I think I'll use black.
She seems like a really specific person.
Right? I don't know. But I'll use my, again, detail brush, and the gouache is a little less watery, so I can go in and paint in some details. But just defining her eyes, again, allows you to kind of change the expression slightly. I'll need a bit more paint here. And again, I feel like, oh, she looks a little bit messy on camera. And I feel like you don't need to complete every bit of a portrait in order for it to be expressive. Like, let the viewer's eye sort of do some of the work for you. Again, I feel like maybe her nose got lost a little bit, so I'll go back in and redefine it slightly.
Yeah, this makes a real difference what you're doing now.
And then drawing in some darker value. Like, it got really wet here at the hairline, so I might even bring in, and again, I don't have to fill in the entire top part of her hair to give the illusion of like that fullness. Like, don't feel like you need to draw in everything. And then if it looks a little contrived, just go ahead and blend. I'm using a detail brush, so I would probably switch brushes at this point. But that kind of changes it a little bit, and even going around like the darkest parts of maybe around her hair too. So it changes it completely. Like, that's why I always say take photos as you go when you're working on things, because you'll want to just have a snapshot of what the process looks like, because there may be stages where you think, oh, I've overworked it, I wish I hadn't, but you have a reference for what it looked like before, especially when you're working on people, I find.
Joe makes an interesting point. I feel like makeup artists would be amazing painting portraits.
Yeah, well, I was a makeup artist in a past life. Very interesting, and I would agree.
How is it? How does it? How does it work? What is the? I guess because you know faces well.
And it's contour and shadow, so it's working, in values
Right.
to bring a feature forward or recede one based on, was that for me?
No, that's me. That's me.
So again, just kind of softening and, right, so she's changed so much next to Mr. Handsome with his pink cheeks. Even bringing a little bit of,
Well, seeing as we were running out of time, shall I just quickly do these eyes?
absolutely.
'Cause, I think it
Let
would
me
be
do a
weird
switch.
if
I'll go ahead and finish blending her too.
do you want to do that? Okay, so I'll keep working on mine then.
Yeah.
And here we go. I'm going to give him. This guy gets blue eyes. And this is a very delicate operation. This guy, I think, has just had a couple of martinis at lunch.
He looked like he was hanging out with the waiter last night, maybe.
Looks like he has sort of horrible.
Just gave him syphilis.
Yeah, I just gave him syphilis. Well, let me give me a quick shot of magenta penicillin. Just gave him syphilis. You know just what to say. All right, let's give this guy some.
Are you gonna finish all of them?
Do you mind? I'm going to try. Please give them pupils. Yeah, I definitely want to work on these guys later.
Yeah, I feel like you can just continue to add little bits of detail and they just will come to life even more just watching you. And I love how you're working pretty monochromatic with most of them, right? Like layering the pink and different tones of pink, the greens, different tones of greens. I love it.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid what I did earlier in the week where I just slathered on too many colors. I think as a group they work because they're kind of like the same intensity. But,
Hmm.
oh, sorry, you can't see her really. Yeah, she'll get pupils in a minute.
What a fun lineup.
Rogues Gallery. Yeah, I could stop now. I mean, I could keep going, but I could also stop.
Amazing. Oh, thank you, Laura. I agree with Lisa, actually. That waiter has seen some bleep.
Yeah, he has been working double shifts. Let's put it that way.
Love it. So good. And
Yeah.
again, right? Like how different they are to each other. I'm going to swap to my desk view too and zoom out a little bit. There's my third little one, right? So just putting down, and again, it's just gouache. I mixed up some colors and like how different they look next to Danny's. I love that. This week has been so cool. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Family reunion.
All right. Well,
So good.
and so we conclude.
There we go.
All right. Well, that was loads of fun.
What are you gonna do tomorrow? I'm gonna be hanging out, waiting for you to show up.
I know. No, I'll be passed out. We are going to see Mandy Patinkin tonight.
I love Mandy. Is he doing like a stand-up like what? How are
No,
you
he
seeing?
sings. He's the most incredible. Oh yeah, has a beautiful singer, and he's doing a recital. Yeah, check. Go and listen to some of his records. They're amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go curling tomorrow.
Curling. Can you believe it? She goes curling.
I curl. That's right. And I love it. I'm pretty good actually. I moved up a position this year too. We're in the last part of our season. It's getting pretty heated.
Yeah, JJ is going to play tennis, the Phoenix equivalent.
Oh, is it pickleball?
No, certainly not.
No.
This is serious. She's a serious tennis player.
Tennis? Okay.
She's going to be playing tennis. I'm going to be doing the other thing that people do in Phoenix, which is lying by the pool with a hangover.
Oh, so nice.
It will be nice. Yes, it should be nice this weekend. So yes, Major Upgrade's going to a metal show tonight. Awesome.
Read what other people are doing.
So,
True Blue Canadian.
Frugal RV Gal likes to watch curling. Well, good. Well, I think we're done. I think we are officially wrapped.
I can't believe it. So fun. Thank you. This has been great. Thank you, Windsor Newton, for bringing us together. Thank you, Danny, for having me. And
it's been so much fun. I've really enjoyed collaborating with you, and I definitely feel like I've had my creativity kick started. So it's been really good. And I'm sure we'll figure out some other things to do in the future. So I would say if you are new to the Sketchbook School community, please join us on Thursdays when we do Draw With Me. And that is, it's kind of like this, except it's usually just me. But I think we'll have, Nicki, you'll have to come back and join me on Draw With Me sometime.
Yeah, I would love that so much.
Yeah, that would be definitely fun. And is there anything that Sketchbook School people can do in your world, Nicki?
Yeah, if you're interested in watercolor, like Danny shared, I have my new book, Watercolor Made Simple, and online classes as well. YouTube is a space where I want to hang out more in. I just feel like I can give more of who I am as an artist. I know Instagram is a place where most of you maybe have come from, but come over to YouTube and give Danny a follow. He's very just gracious with how much he shares and offers. So yeah, just come.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff on this channel. And we have a class a set of tutorials that I'm working on. We've done about a dozen of them so far called How to Draw. So if drawing is new to you, check out How to Draw on this channel. And and I do essays as well. So every week I write an essay, and I also usually make a video out of the essay. So there's lots of stuff, lots of free stuff. And then there's
Yeah.
also some incredibly expensive stuff. I teach you how to paint with gold brushes on diamonds. No, there's all kinds of
I do
other things.
too. That's crazy. We've never discussed that.
Yes, yeah, and then you just throw the brush away after you're done.
It's a smaller niche, so we don't really share that too
Yeah, it's true. For those who just don't
And
don't
of
care.
course, give Winsor Newton a try. We love them, and
Yeah,
their
Winsor
products.
Newton. As I
They're
mean, so
so
this week we've used gouache, markers, watercolors, colored pencils,
good.
ink, calligraphy ink. Man, we've just done it all. And
So lovely.
feel free to go and buy huge amounts of all of it because it's really good. It's the best. It is the
Yeah, and
best.
thank you everyone for showing up, because reading the comments and getting that feedback is huge. I know it inspires us, inspires me. I'm
Totally,
sure
me
it's
too. Yeah, we
Annie
love
too.
hearing from you. So, all right, guys,
Yeah.
have a great weekend. Keep making
Okay.
art. Hope to see you again soon. Nicki, thanks for everything. It's been awesome.
Thank you. See you next time.